All right, so it's 3 p.m. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are all set to begin with another stimulating session on connecting the dots. First of all, I would like to thank our esteemed speakers for being a part of the panel discussion. Welcoming Mr. Atul Mathur, Executive Vice President HR, Aditya Birla Group, Mr. Ajay Arora, Head Human Resources, APEC, Ocwen Financial Solutions, Dr. Satish Rajaratnam, SVP HR, Emphasis, Ms. Bhavna Sharma, International People Compliance Leader, Twilio. Digital transformation presents organizations with the opportunity to reimagine the way their businesses are run through new digital processes and tools. However, as with any change management initiative, there are challenges businesses will face throughout the transformation process, ranging from people centric issues, structural problems, technical barriers, and everything in between. Our esteemed panelists would be sharing their views on this topic, overcoming challenges in the digital age. HRAI welcomes you all to the session on connecting the dots. To know more about HRAI and its events, I would request all our participants to visit the link and details posted in the chat window. It would be great to have all the participants' feedback. We will be running a poll before the Q&A session. Request all participants to kindly give your feedback on the session. I now take the privilege to introduce our moderator for the session, and further she can take it from there. Mr. Miss Bhavna Sharma, International People Compliance Leader, Twilio. Bhavna is a seasoned HR professional with over 13 years of experience working across startups and large global MNCs. Ex Infosys and currently working at Twilio at Epic as Epic leader for people compliance. Her HR career spans across talent acquisition, people compliance, HR risk management, total rewards, mergers and acquisitions, and new country penetration. She excels at augmented advisory and program management and has contributed to various new people practices and processes across her career. She is also a published poet and author with her first publication of Pensive Moments. You can follow her on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared on the chat window. Over to you, Ms. Bhavna.
Thank you, Faisal, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for making the time to join us for this webinar. I have an esteemed panel this afternoon with over 60 years of experience between them, so it is sure to be an enriching session with interesting insights into business and HR practices. I would begin with introducing my panel members. Atul Mathur. Atul is the Executive VP HR at Aditya Birla Capital. He has rich exposure of leading talent management, learning and development, recruitment, employee engagement, policy formulation, and implementation initiatives. Atul has worked with business as well as HR functions in diverse industries like telecommunications, BPO, insurance, search consultancy, and media. He is certified in MBTI, FIRO-B, assessment, and development centers. My next panelist is Ajay Arora. Ajay is a business leader with 21 years of experience in technology, FMCG and financial services, and strategic HR functions like talent management, employee experience, OD, talent development, CNB, leadership assessments, and M&A. Ajay is currently working with Ocwen Financial Solutions as head of HR for APAC and carries significant global HR responsibility. He is an avid reader, panel speaker, and a well-recognized HR leader. My third panel member is Dr. Satish Rajaratnam. Dr. Satish is an HR leader with over 23 years of global experience across multiple industry verticals and proven experience in strategizing and transforming business through human capital strategy, organizational transformation, and coaching. He is adept at enabling business agility, building digital capability, leadership development, career and succession planning, talent management, organizational effectiveness and performance management, strategic workforce planning, cultural transformation, and change management. He is an HR technology evangelist and digital transformation expert in leading high-tech enterprise-wide HR technology stack re-engineering programs. So that's a lot of experience on this panel, and I hope you will make the most of it to ask questions and take back insights from our esteemed panelists this afternoon. I extend a warm welcome to all three of you to this afternoon's webinar, and I am very excited to hear your insights. On an opening note, and to warm up for a more detailed conversation, I invite all three panelists to share their insights on how the role of HR has evolved in business in the post-COVID era. And what does digital transformation mean for you as an HR leader? How are you seeing that evolve? And if I may, just to streamline the order of conversation, maybe invite Ajay to go first, and if Atul and Satish could follow after that, that'd be great. Ajay, let's hear from you.
Thank you, Bhavna. I think the pandemic led to businesses realizing that talent which they have is pretty important in running businesses successfully. And there was an initial rush that HR is very important because for all people related issues and decisions, businesses looked to HR for everything. But now that most of that noise has died down, the challenge for the HR team remains because the importance has been established. Now, what do we do? So, I will specifically talk about what Ocwen has been doing. The basis of running the HR function, talent development, engagement, the whole thing, we realize that it should come out of a particular outcome-oriented process. So globally, we have been running something called as talent review, succession planning, or human capital planning, and everything, performance management, whether we do retention actions, whatever development which we do, has to come out of all of this. It has to be connected and it has to produce results. So that is something which is a very good idea, which others can also use to ensure that whatever HR is doing is actually based on three specific things. Running the whole function cost efficiently, in producing effective outcomes, and improving employee experience and connect. And that's where technology comes in. Right? Technology is helping all businesses actually achieve all of these three. See, we are, surely using technology to see each other, to connect people, but that's not enough. There's a whole lot of technology which is available today, which helps you run your HR function, deliver what we do, deliver services, connect with employees, collect important data which should be used for people decisions. Now, people decisions were being taken earlier too. There was data available, but today the data expectation is that it is outcome-based and it has to be visible. And it has to create differentiators, because that is what is going to lead your business towards success. Of course, Satish will be talking about it much more. That is where I will end. That the expectation from HR is heightened. There's tangible results which are expected of HR, and HR today has a lot of technology options available for it to produce those tangible results and to run the function cost efficiently, and to create experience and connect with employees, candidates, etc. Thank you.
Thanks, Ajay. Atul, if you could take your views as well.
Yeah, sure, Bhavna, thanks. In fact, I think Ajay has covered all the points, so I can only say ditto. Okay, but just adding on to what Ajay said, See, I feel and completely concur with Ajay that HR's role was always central. It has become more central now. Post pandemic, and if you were to look at certain aspects, so for example, now we have a hybrid workforce, which means that some people are working from office, some people are working from home, and some people are kind of sometimes office, sometimes home, depending on the roles that they are in, right? And there's a new element of gig workforce entering the economy, entering the workforce. So therefore, the HR's role in terms of designing complete HR policies, practices, which are more enabling and inclusive for this diverse set of people, but as a diverse because of the way that they're working or associated with the organization. So HR has has a key role to play in that, and that is what would drive or rather help driving the organization's strategy in a very cost effective and optimal fashion. Secondly, if we look at it, it's now more outside in. We are in a very hyper competitive environment, and therefore there's a need for the organization structure to be more agile. And there are a lot of experiments which are happening around that in terms of having an agile workforce, those squads and all, which are getting incubated and definitely being led by HR. Obviously, with the advent of technology and with the advent of all these new things, requires new skills, and therefore from a future ready perspective, there's a lot which needs to be done and is being done in terms of upskilling people. A lot has to be unlearned, and a lot of new things have to be picked up and learned. And that's what, in fact, in our organization, our focus is on being future ready. So it's both here and now, what people are doing from a productivity point of view, and also make them capable of, moving to the next orbit, which is around the corner. On technology front, I would say it encompasses the entire employee life cycle. But I would like to bring about a distinction between something called digitalization and digitization. And again, not getting into semantics, digitization is more when you are automating a process. Digitalization is when you're looking at it as a whole. And that's where elements of design thinking and all come in. And when we say a digital mindset and people need to be carrying that mindset, I think the focus needs to be more on tackling the larger issues, bringing in technology from the beginning, instead of saying that I'll automate this process or I'll automate that process. So whether it's a employee related process, or it's a customer related process, or it's a process which has to do with deal with our suppliers, and HR has to play a key role in each of these. So it is no longer verticalized that we'll only look at recruitment and performance management. HR is shouldering a larger responsibility, and that's a new avatar of HR. So I would say, yes, it has definitely assumed a more central role.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Atul. Satish, if you may, please request for your views.
Shaman, I'd love to say I go with Ajay and Atul and then pass it on back to you. But then, I'm gonna take a step back. I want to go pre-COVID, where HR were predominantly, focusing on rather, I would say, the wealth part of it in terms of total rewards. How do you differentially, strategize your total reward philosophy, and things like that, because the growth was significant out there, the last phase of it. During COVID, it all became from wealth to health, right? So everybody started focusing on how do you remotely connect with your associates and make sure their health is taken care to a large extent, right? To an extent where a lot of new insurance policies were rolled out in most of the organizations. Insurers and TPAs were kind of made to work additionally in terms of from what they used to do in prior context, right? But the post-COVID, the post-pandemic is where now it become a totality of what Ajay and Atul said in terms of employee experience, right? We used to call in IT world, if I think most of you guys would have been IT or otherwise, in IT world, we used to call this as DX, which is delivery excellence, and CX, which is customer experience. But now the trend, or rather the cliche word, is all about EX, right? Your employee experience. Everybody started saying, look, I'm going to do a monthly dipstick, quarterly dipstick. I will pick up top 3, top 5 net promoter scores and see how I can work on it, enable it to enhance it, and so on and so forth. But that's one aspect to the functionality per se, right? So that's from a pre to post pandemic perspective. But just from a data point standpoint, it was estimated that about 6 out of 10 job occupancies, 50% of them were ready to be automated or in the process of getting automated. And that's what I think Atul touched upon. That has fastened, right? So by 2030, researchers suggested that there will be a occupation change for about 159 million job occupancies, which is huge globally, right? If that were to happen, and just to put in some anecdotal example, if the autonomous mobility is going to be the reality going forward, what's going to happen to those individuals who ply those cabbies right now, right? How do we reskill, cross-skill, and put them out? In IT parlance, there are tools. We have a patent from Mphasis. We have a patent called, which would automate your coding. All you have to do is just take a white piece of paper, draw the boxes, and just say first name, last name. You scan it. It converts that into a language that you want to be coded upon, right? Things are happening. I mean, I'm sure most of you guys have heard about low code, no code. So there are a lot of technologies that have developed. So what's going to happen to these developers who've been doing basic coding, for example, again, I'm just going very rudimentary stuff, right? What's going to happen to them unless you upskill, cross-skill, and enhance their capability to a large extent? Their employee experience will diminish and they will not be relevant in the market anyway, right? In the context of every month, there is a new technology stack coming out, new language coming in, new versions coming in, right? New names coming in. Who would have heard about Kafka's The Kamundas, and look at the names that are coming out with, right? It's all wild jungle coming up. So that's the way that it is. So there's been a paradigm shift from pre, during, and post pandemic. What we see is what Atul spoke about, the transformation of digital strategy that we have. That is helping us. When I say us, not just HR, entire organization to maneuver this VUCA that we're talking about, right? So that's one part. The second part of your question is about digital HR. There are multiple facets where in your entire employee life cycle, a lot of bots have come in, a lot of cobots have come in, a lot of AI, ML driven algorithms that have come in. There are a lot of areas where your new avatars are coming in, right? To say so, in our organization, we run through our employee experience in terms of reward recognition through multiverse, right? So you log into a platform, it's like an island, you get down, it's like, let's say, for example, Caribbean, right? You get into a ship with your family, you get down wherever you wanted to, you kind of explore that with your family, take selfies, our leaders will be there virtually as well. You can talk to them, exchange coffees and other stuff, right? Everything has now become multiverse as well, right? So that's the shift that HR will have to start embracing big time. So gone are the days where a recruiter sits through and kind of calls about 500 incumbents and say, hey, are you interested in this job? That's gone. A bot has taken over that. But having said that, the human part of it, right? How do you bring that back? And a bot can only do as much, but the validation, revalidation, and progression through that is still done by us as humans. So that's the shift that we're seeing from pre to the current state. It is all about efficiency. It is all about agility and being nimble and be able to adapt to changes from an HR perspective. I think that's the circle that we want to weave in collectively between Ajay, Atul, and myself. Yeah.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Satish. And thank you, each one of you. I think that really helps set the macro scope of the topic for this conversation. And taking this conversation further, I will now dive in a little deeper into specific areas with each one of you to go a little micro into this topic as well. And Ajay, I'd like to come to you first. I think in your opening response, you mentioned about HR providing the tangible results. But one of the most valuable intangible asset for an organization is the culture that it exhibits. And there is a saying that culture is a shared way of doing the same thing with a lot of passion. However, currently, with a scattered workforce, some of whom have never met each other, how can HR create some mechanisms to address culture assimilation? And how are you leveraging technology towards it in your organization?
Yeah. So thank you, Bhavna. The first thing we have to understand is tech is a tool. as Satish said, there's a lot of work which is happening through technology, but finally there is a part which all of us have to play. So tech is a tool, but what is the tool doing? So one of the foremost things which we are doing is to recreate presence. My job is a bit easier because Ocwen has always worked on creating culture, which helps the organization perform better, engage employees, improve retention. So that is the kind of culture we've always had. But in the current environment, the question which is coming out is, the part which is called the presence. So when we were working from office, when we were all together in a location, what was happening? What was happening was that we were all present, physically present with each other. That's the only thing which has changed if you really look at it, right? So we use technology to recreate that presence, which doesn't only mean that we are using the technology which we use to do meetings and connect with each other, but there's a whole lot of other things which can be used to create that presence, right? Now, Ocwen is also a company which has decided to be largely have a remote workforce, which means almost 95 to 98% of our workforce every day is still working from home. We're not asking people to come to office. And the very, very funny part here, if you ask people to come to work, they might not. If you say you decide, they may still come to work. So, the workforce has completely changed. They want to make that decision. If you let them make that decision, they'll be in office. If you ask them, they will never come. They'll give you 50,000 reasons for not coming to office, right? So this changed workforce is what we need to deal with. So which means we need to learn how to do work in a different manner than what we used to do, right? Now, one of the foremost things which we realized is that not everything can be done by HR people or by technology, right? The delivery which we do, or the way we engage people, or the way we connect with our own people is through our supervisors, managers, people managers, right? So we need to work on them a lot. That became very important. It's not something new. It's not a new concept. It is not a new idea. But in this current environment where presence is virtual, right, and it may not be visible, we had to work more on our people managers. That emphasis, it's a very basic thing, but that emphasis a lot of companies would need to realize, and especially for us where there's still largely remote workforce, we started working on them a lot. They need to learn new skills, they need to increase touch points, but just by saying that, they're not going to do it. So the HR team has to partner with them to achieve it. Right? It has to be done nicely. It has to be done in a manner where you recognize they're also employees of your company. Right? So you need to first provide that experience to them. Now, use of technology to deliver basic services is something which has been well established, right? But the newer things which Satish mentioned, right? The chatbots, the bots which are actually able to do transactions. That is very important. The initial usage of bots, AI, ML has been into just information sharing, chatting. But now now how it has progressed is that if I need to cut down on people, or I need to cut down on that or reduce errors, things like that, the bot also needs to perform actions, right? So that has been brought in. We need to collect a lot of information which is useful for people decisions, right? So if there is no presence of people, how do you ensure that culture building still keeps going on? How do you ensure that culture assimilation happens? It happens by ensuring that your people decisions remove the bias of presence. Or this person comes to office, works with me, I connect with this person more. So this is my person who's should be promoted next or given better increments. No. So the HR team needs to have this, specific 10 or 15 different things which they ask whether there is bias on this or not. Now, these are again basic points, but they get missed out when you go in for, all the things, whether it is your performance ratings, whether it is your even your increments, even for reward and recognition. We forget to ask some of these questions. So we need to ask that, right? So this is a next evolution of the way we created checklists and created checkpoints and asked questions to improve diversity and inclusion in the company, right? Now that has gone to a different level. So now it has to also incorporate these. Now for Ocwen, this whole period and where we made so much effort has been quite successful. We have been able to increase the women workforce in our organization in India and Philippines by almost 20-25%. We were at 30-33%. Today we are at 40 plus in India. 40% plus women employees. And please keep in mind, we work in US working hours. So, that is where women actually don't prefer to work, right? So even after that, this whole pandemic situation and our extra work on ensuring that culture building is still going on and culture assimilation happens very strongly has helped us improve our diversity question. Okay, we saw initially that in the people who were hired in 2020 and 2021 were the first ones to leave the organization, right? But there are many reasons for that. One, that was the workforce which started hopping jobs to earn more money, and it is not something which is only for Ocwen. I think it is a global phenomenon for all countries, all companies throughout all countries. Now. That made us realize that a lot more work needs to happen for assimilation, because these people are still not connected with you. They are not engaged, because in this environment, you're not meeting them, you're not talking to them about how good the company is, what all the company does for employees, how much work we do for your talent management, talent development, things like that. So even though you are largely remote, there are different ways that need to be created for getting people to office, but those should not be for doing, fun at work activities or team building activities on, right? Work should happen on that day in office, probably once in a month or so, right? Collaboration should happen on that day. There should be a specific agenda on that day for when people come to office. You need to achieve something on that day, right? As I said, more emphasis on data which is getting collected, de-emphasize physical presence, create work from office opportunities for collaboration and innovation, have more connects on purpose and communication. That is another thing, right? It has become difficult to manage teams. For HR, the job has become a little more difficult, right? Because you need more time to connect with people, talk to them, listen to them. Well, earlier it was possible you get 20 people together, you talk to them and matter is over. Today you have to have that 10-minute meeting, 15-minute meeting with those 300 people, right? At the same time, the senior leadership has also found it a bit difficult to give their time to connect with people, right? But that still needs to happen. That extra effort needs to be made. You keep talking to them on what is happening with the company, what is the plan for the quarter, for the year, why are we here, what are we here for to achieve. So those purpose communication meetings we increased. So these are the things. As far as technology specifically is concerned, you use technology to connect with your candidates, because that is how you can connect with more candidates. You ensure that you're able to collect documents through that. Again, that happens efficiently and effectively. As far as employees are concerned, today recognition is happening through technology. As Satish said, people started having those surveys. I'll have a monthly, quarterly, etc. But today technology, helps you connect with them 50 times in a day. You have those tools available where employees come to you to tell you what is happening. You don't need to go to them. Okay, I'm starting a survey now. You give me result. No, there's technology available which is available to them and to all managers for them to keep telling you what is going on, what do they think, how is their engagement with the company, things like that. So those things need to be used. As I said, a integrated way of running HR will be helpful, because that also makes you collect more data, and collection of that data can only be done through technology, right? And please the use of AI, ML, etc. is just the next evolution of big data, because we are now just using that data to connect, deliver, etc. AI will run only on data, right? So data has to be clean. It has to be more tangible. It has to be visible, and use all of this to deliver results. Yeah, these are things which we are doing. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think some great examples there of collaboration, DNI, innovation, and purpose, and keeping those consistent and progressing in this current time. Thanks, Ajay, for your inputs. Atul, I'd like to come to you next, and what I'd like to dive into with you is the pandemic accelerated adoption of technology across all industries. However, there are varying work models adopted across the business sectors, and organizations are going from fully remote to hybrid. Metaverse is on the rise. Satish alluded to adoption of AI and ML. And many speak of the need to meet physically but work remotely, giving rise to the new trend of phygital in HR. So, what is your take on it to be future ready, as you said? And how are you managing this in your organization? Atul, you're on mute, I'm afraid.
Mr. Atul can't unmute. Request the host to please, yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's another technological issue, that I was muted by the host. So I was trying to convey in a sign language that I've been muted. Anyway, yeah. So yes, as I mentioned earlier, that we have a hybrid workforce, and a lot of things that Ajay mentioned are also things that we are also doing in our organization. But I think what is very, very critical to note is that that feeling of oneness, the feeling of inclusion, is very, very critical, right? And therefore we have gone in through gone ahead with a lot of communication, with our employees at large. So there are a lot of communications that are happening. Let's say webinars being organized by the senior leadership team. There are a lot of skip level interactions that are happening with people, and again, technology plays a key role because people are spread all across the country. Connect with the team members is very, very critical. One thing which I always say is that you have these two theories, theory X and theory Y. Theory X says that people don't want to work, right? And theory Y says that people love work as much as play. I think in the current scenario, all leaders need to have the mindset of theory Y, because your team may not be sitting in front of you or besides you, but that doesn't mean that they're not working. In fact, what I've seen is, and during COVID, I've seen that people have actually gone beyond working hours also. And in certain cases, the same trend continues. In my case, in my team, I have to at times tell people that, look, enjoy a weekend, don't get overworked, you have a personal life as well. So I think that theory Y mindset is very, very critical. And definitely technology is helping us in terms of connecting. Like I think Ajay mentioned that, today we can connect with the people 50 times in a day, right? Or, the employees can come back, and there's so many digital forums as well where people can write. If there's a complaint, a grievance, that also, comes across. So I think that connect thing, and that, digital connect leading to an emotional connect, if I could put it that way, right, is very, very critical and very, very important. The good thing which I have seen with technology coming in is that a lot of times earlier, a lot of people I would have met only when I traveled to those areas. Today, I can connect with them anytime. Yeah. It is not necessary that I have to travel to Far East, or, somewhere in southern India, or let's say somewhere in the east, the northern part of the country. I mean, since I'm based out of Mumbai, the connect is happening, and technology is really, helping in that. We've also gone ahead, like I think Satish and Ajay both mentioned that on the wellness part, right? So, for example, we've been holding yoga sessions through Zoom, through Teams, for our employees. We have some learning apps where we're putting up these videos which people can look at. So what I'm saying is that connect and making people feel included in the organization, right? Even if they're not sitting across the table or sitting in the same location as you are, that's where technology is playing a key role. In fact, even newcomers who are joining in the organization, there was a time, I'm sure all of us would have faced that we didn't even see people face to face. Somebody was sitting in Ranchi, somebody was sitting in Darbhanga, and they still joined your company. And there were interns who came and went, and we didn't get a chance to meet up with them. It was all digital connect. So I think technology is therefore helping in a big way. Obviously, it does not mean that you don't meet in person. That has its own charm. And again, to me, the world of digital is a world of and, not or. So both will exist. There'll be a in-person connect and there'll be a digital connect. But what's important is that connect has to be there, and that has to be kept in mind. And in today's scenario, the employee has to be at the center around whatever that we are planning, whatever that we are trying to do, whatever capabilities that we are building in our people. That's where it plays a key role. I hope it answers your question to some extent, Bhavna.
Yes, Atul, and that phrase of digital means and not or. I think that will stay with me. Thank you. Satish, I would come to you next. And in your opening conversation, you spoke about this pre, during, and post pandemic. And there are clearly plenty of challenges in the post-COVID era. While organizations have been quite resilient in faring through the last couple of years, but now the focus is on building our strategy and practices for the future. Now, while all key HR processes have undergone immense change, whether it's talent attraction, engagement, administration, or experience, which are the key areas for HR, in your view, which are the areas where HR must look to adopt technology in order to better enable business strategies and plans in the post-COVID world? Because that's supposed to be our end objective, partnering with business and facilitating them. So if you could share your thoughts around that, would be a great add-on.
Sure, Bhavna. I'm just going to take a few seconds to kind of sum up what Ajay and Atul said. Maybe I'll put a box to it if I want to, and if you may, right? Quickly, what have we taken out from what Ajay and Atul said? I'm just going to quickly sum it up. From a culture assimilation standpoint or a culture rebuild standpoint, the virtual world, what are we trying to do? The key tenets, rather, I would want to put it as, I think both of them alluded to it very nicely, right? How do you enlist and empower our employees, right? Today, I think that's where it all started, right? When Atul honestly said, look, unmuting ourselves is a big challenge. Look at the number of memes that went through, or even it's still there in the social media in terms of how many of them attend interviews or rather meetings in the way that they were, right? They'll freeze and they'll say there's some internet issue. Do you recall? Things like that, right? I think that's a reality right now. You have to live with it. And things are changing. People are understanding, yes, that's the way of life, right? You can't have 3-4 hours of online meeting and get things going on, discuss the entire code line by line over a meeting. That's not going to happen. How can you keep it crisp? And if you're going to do a retrospective meet in a Scrum team perspective, and how can you keep it short, simple, and move on? Things like that. So the key to this is about how to enlist and empower our employees. We know that they will be able to deliver and they will deliver, rather than getting in too tactical and micromanagement. I think that word has also been cliched right now, right? No more micromanagement. I mean, in the remote world, you can't every day ask someone to log in for 8 hours and say, what have you done this hour and next hour? So empowerment and enlistment is a key. That is one. Also, to sum up to what both of them said in terms of living for a purpose, right? How do you have a shared or a common vision across, right? How do you rather narrate as a leader or as an HR individual, HR practitioner? How do you narrate the same story, right? HR's job is eventually to show the mirror both sides, to the management and to the employees. So how do you write that story of commonality across and make them realize, look, this is the way of life. If clients are asking you to come back to work, you might as well show up, right? That's where it is. At Mphasis, what we do is we say, hey, work from anywhere, collaborate at office, right? Should there be a need that customer is coming down, you want to showcase something, come back to work, right? And if you look at it, our key tenet in terms of our EVP is about high tech. What Atul said, technology pushes everything out. But the rest two are all human, right? How do you accentuate H in HR, which is high trust, right? And high touch, right? That's what we spoke about in employee experience as well. So these three combines all of what collectively the three of us are also saying, right? How do you, again, getting back to what Ajay said, how do you create an environment which is inclusive in nature? That means how do you be respectful of the nature you're in a virtual meeting? How do you listen and pay attention to the other individual on the other side and not overruling him or her every now and then, right? That's critical. And during and even now, it is all about how do you care for others, right? So being respectful and being caring, that's another behavior that's just kind of bubbled up significantly in the past year and a half or two, so right? Because everybody know, hey, are you keeping okay? I'm keeping okay. Are you all safe? Don't travel out. So if you look at it, all such courteous words have started coming in. The team has now become much more cohesive than what it used to be. In contrary to what Ajay said, right? In person also, you're in a bay, I'm in a bay. You walk out, you log in 8 hours and move out. But now people have started asking, hey, you look, your throat's sounding a little dull. Are you okay, right? It is starting to come out. What used to be courtesy per se, and now it's become a reality, right? People are genuinely concerned about others and health and so on and so forth. And that's what I want to call it as, live it and be inclusive and be as an example as an HR leader that you want to be, right? Atul brought it up very, very well, the skip levels and so on and so forth. Culture building, I'm sure most of you all know this phrase, right? Culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and whatnot, right? So the best part of this is, how do you communicate? Yes, it takes more than once, twice, or thrice, but can you repeat your messages and communicate effectively so that all of them in the team understand what you're trying to communicate? Well, that's another big change that's happened. Take the same example in virtual meeting right now. Half of the time, either the host mutes you or your mic gives up. There is loud noise somewhere else, things like that. But it's essential that we've also nurtured that behavior or skill, saying, look, I need to repeat myself until the other individual gets it or nods ahead saying, yes, I understood what you're saying, right? That's critical. But again, to quickly sum it up, do not forget the purpose of your organization, right? And if you kind of keep reiterating that story, what I spoke about, the common story, I guess trust as a culture would get built out significantly, right? Keep narrating, keep communicating, be open and transparent. I think that's where your trust gets built up. And all of these will impact, like I said, in accentuating H in the HR. I think that's what will build a fairly strong culture. And that's what we've been practicing a lot as well within our organization, right? So high tech, high touch, and high trust. I guess that's something the way forward. Use technology as aid, like what Atul said. But how do you create the trust element to run whereby the high touch part of it in terms of creating that employee experience, right? It could be yoga, it could be Tai Chi, or it could be metaverse coming in and doing employee experience, but stay in connect. I think that's the way that you build culture in any organization, in my view.
So basically, everybody kind of nodding along with you. Thank you. Ajay, I'll circle back to you now. And this round of questions will focus a little more on the technology aspect in line with the topic as well. And I'll just extend on your insights around culture assimilation in the current environment, Ajay. While you spoke about what is necessary to bring about an effective cultural assimilation in the current times, but as I think adopting technology is not a question anymore, it's just become the way of life. But what do you think are the key cultural elements that are necessary to create a successful technology adoption in an organization? And what is the role of HR, or how do you think HR can drive that journey for an organization so that all the parts in the employee life cycle, they kind of come together and fit together?
Sure. And Bhavna, I'll keep it short because I know we are running late on time. Few principles, bullet points, which are important for HR to keep in mind, and for us to ensure that the organization learns these for technology implementations, for adoption of technology in an organization. First thing is decentralized decision making. Very, very important. It should be your basis of getting in technology in the company. Empower employees and managers. Encourage self-service. Doesn't happen. It's very easily said, but people don't still want to use self-service. Don't replicate as is ways of doing things. Oh, I have this and I want to replicate it. I will tinker with technology so much that it is unrecognizable, and after 1 year, it is not usable. No, there is a lot of innovation out there. Look at that innovation, use that strong point instead of replicating your way of doing work, which means we will have to change the way we do things, right? Reduce steps in the whole workflow. Use what you deploy. Believe me, again, easier said than done. A lot of companies get in technology, don't even use it. It shouldn't be a fad or good to have. We need to actually use it. If you don't think it is going to get used, don't bring in the technology, right? Especially at the top level. Certain things which don't get used, believe me, after 1 year, it starts getting questioned and it falls by the wayside. Then you look for something new. Okay. Integrate systems as much as possible. It is a holy grail, which all of us have been chasing. We keep repeating, but believe me, it is important. We will need to integrate. Even though the newer AI ML systems sit on top of your ERPs, they don't really, connect with each other. But still, you need to find ways in which there is a pole between all of these systems for you to use. Finally, you need to collect data through these systems, through this technology which you use, and use it for decisions, because then only it will get internalized and it will be sustained in the organization for long. Short and sweet from me.
Thank you, Ajay. So, integration of systems, I think it's a great point for all of us. Thank you, Ajay. Atul, I'll quickly move to you. We discussed that technology has been adopted widely and digital is inevitable for most organizations. At this point, what is a critical technology development in the culture of digital that HR should adopt? HR analytics, for example, and how can it be efficiently used across employee lifecycle?
Sure. So, I think you answered the question yourself, Bhavna, that, HR analytics data is the new oil, as they say, and, data is the most critical thing. So the kind of data that HR sits on, a lot of meaningful decisions can be taken with the help of, technology. And now that we have the tools and techniques with us in terms of data mining, in terms of, analytics, it can really help us. So right from the kind of people that we are hiring into the organization and whether they're the right fit. So for example, a lot of organizations have faced very high levels of attrition, at the frontline level. And analytics has really helped us in terms of kind of curbing it, because we realized that maybe some of the people that we hired in the rush of things were probably not meant for that kind of a role or for that kind of a job. So just an example to give, right? Similarly, when I look at learning and development, for example, right? One size fits all is not there. Today we're talking about hyper personalization. Now, how do you actually cater to hyper personalization? So if it's Bhavna Sharma, her development needs could be very different from Ajay Arora's needs to Satish's needs to Atul's needs, right? But if you're working in a large organization which is multi-locational, right, how do you manage it? And that's where technology really comes, plays a big role. And that's where this analytics, which can help you take meaningful decisions, becomes very, very important. But the most important thing is that they say charity begins at home. I think before we start influencing other functions in the organization, HR itself has to be convinced. And why I'm saying that is because a lot of times, people tend to go back to their old ways of working. And because that's where the comfort lies, right? So I think that mindset shift will only bring about that needle shift. And therefore, it's very, very important that HR, everyone, the last man in the value chain, has to strongly understand the benefits of what these tools and technologies can bring to the fore, and then in turn we can actually influence people around, in the organization.
Thank you. Thanks, Atul. Satish, I'll pose the last and the most important question to you in the current times. With the rising trends of AI and metaverse, not only in IT but also in HR processes, there's also concern around how the data is being handled and the transparency of handling that data. What, in your view, can HR do to help mitigate the fear of collecting too much of employees' data and maintain the transparency of use and thereby accelerate adoption in our HR processes?
It's a very important question given the current context of all of us, or most of us, being virtual and hybrid. And you have the GDPRs, you have the SOX compliance, a lot of other compliance coming in terms of data, which is a pertinent question, right? It's a huge challenge. It truckloads, ton loads of data that HR runs through on a day-to-day basis, like what Atul said, right? So that's where we need to go back to what Ajay alluded to a large extent in his response to the question as well. Do we have an integrated platform, right? Today, how many of our organizations that we see, the recruitment engine runs a separate platform, your learning and development runs a separate LXP, or a performance engine is separate that runs on your HCM, or your talent planning module is kept outside of all of these in the first place, right? Your employee experience happens through an app, which could be a third party or a inbuilt app, which is again a standalone app and monolithic in nature, and so on and so forth. Your leadership talent reviews that Ajay spoke about and Atul alluded to as well, that is done on a different platform altogether with a consulting firm coming in, right? This is the way of life, right? Like what Atul said, I think we should start the charity from home. How do we bring in all essence of employee life cycle together? Like, and that would resolve your problem statement of data not being moved on or not being available, or what we call as an ISO standards, data integrity and availability, right? That's very, very critical. Can we, as much as possible, kind of centralize the data to a large extent? When you put in a name called data lake or whatever it is, right? Data mine, data lake, and whatever you want to put it from a technology perspective. But can you kind of bring in all talent related or people related data under one umbrella, one schema, right? It could be through API, it could be through a single platform, it could be an enterprise-wide application together. But I think that's the key to what you've been asking for, right? Unless you have that in place, think about it. If there's going to be a presentation to leadership, your delivery head is asking for, hey, can you give me how many of them have been recruited, how many of them have been promoted? There are two sets of data that goes to him or her. There'll be one individual collecting all these. That could be hits and misses in that, right? Picks and loses as well, right? So it's very, very critical to have a unified view. There are multiple tools that have come in today's context. The simplest one is using a Power BI, right? Can you put in all the downloads and uploads into Power BI? You get to see the entire 360 view of an employee. So the next 2-3 years or much sooner as well, for all that you may know, is about how do you run data integrity. Again, when I say that, it's got to be not just people data, but it's the entire talent data, right? Your AIs and MLs that you're talking about, it will start throwing out, patterns. It will start throwing out insights saying, look, for example, to what Atul said, the attrition that's happening, right? Who would know that, hey, anybody hired with a date of birth between March and May, I see a much larger attrition happening, quote unquote. It's just a hypothetical example, right? You would never know. So based on the data, you can take a lot of decisions. As long as you're all integrated right from your pre-hire to hire to onboarding to develop to perform to career to progression to exit, it has to be on a 360 view. Else, it's going to be a big struggle, at least for our community, right? But just to quickly sum it up, from an HR perspective, it's not just kind of bringing all these functions together. HR has to be in the crossroads of business growth. More than anything, HR should start looking at business acumen as a key competency or capability to kind of build through, right? What's the growth trajectory for next year? If this is the growth, which geographies that we should target? If this is the geographies, is the talent available, not available? If talent is available, partially, how do we build those talent, right? Unless you get to that extent of deeper understanding of business acumen, it is going to be tough. So one, business acumen. Second, all the three of us spoke about technology acumen, right? Which technology will solve your problem? And Ajay put it very, very rightly. Don't try to solve world hunger, right? Pick up your local street to start with, local lane to start with, local block to start with, and then scale it up. And that's what Ajay spoke about, right? Do a design thinking, pick an MVP, start off with a small solution, execute it, test it, and then move on to a larger problem statement of similar nature, right? So that's the second piece. The third and the last one is about the operating model. That's kind of changing on a day-to-day basis, right? In the virtual world, do you need a hierarchy that cuts across 7, 8 different layers, right? The performers are here. You have a manager, you have a manager's manager, and then another aggregator, and then the leader out there. Do we need so many layers? Which is what ideally it will in person. But today, in IT world, we run through what we call as Scrum teams. Every Scrum team will have direct visibility and interaction on a day-to-day basis with a customer as well. So do you need so many layers? So the operating model is also changing drastically. So 3 ways of looking at it. 1, build better business acumen. 2, technology acumen. And 3, operating model disruption that are happening. Build acumen around what will be the best optimized way, or what will be the best right-sized way of running the pyramid within my organization. I'll leave it with that thought.
Thank you, Satish, for summing that up beautifully. And with that, Satish, Ajay, and Atul, thank you for this enriching conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed the session and the opportunity to pick your brains, and I'm sure the audience did as well. I'll hand this over to Faisal now and see if there are any questions from the audience to be answered.
Yeah, so before we move to the Q&A round, we will be running a poll to have the participants' valuable feedback on this session. During this time, we request all the participants to feel free and put their questions in the chat window. Meanwhile, Ms. Bhavna, questions are coming in. Yeah, there is one question from Bhavik. You can take it up. Ms. Bhavna?
Yeah. So there's a question for our panelists here. It hasn't been directed to anyone specifically, so whichever one of you may want to take it. How HRBPs can benefit and contribute to the company goals at large?
Can I go
Yes.
first on this?
Please, Atul.
Yeah, so I think what Satish had mentioned, in terms of developing the business acumen, right? From a HRBP perspective, I think it's very, very important that they need to have a good understanding of not only the functions that they are interacting with, but of the overall organizational bigger picture. And I think it's a good opportunity. For example, in our case, we are actually training these people in terms of understanding what the business is all about. Second is that a lot of times you find that even HRBPs themselves are not really aware of what the HR practices or policies are. So it has to be at 2 levels. One is that they need to be really par excellence in terms of what the HR policies of the organization are, what the various themes of the HR themes of the organization are, so that they're able to very effectively communicate it to the concerned people wherever they are stationed, wherever they are based. And secondly, they definitely need to have a larger better view of the larger picture of the organization. What is it that the company is working for? And need to understand their role, because as I said, HR has become very central now, right? And the HRBPs play a pivotal role in terms of carrying this forward. And needless to say that they also have to be tech savvy now, because that's the best way of reaching out, and that's the best way of responding in the shortest possible time. Because if it's a spread out geography, you may not be able to meet everybody in person all the time.
Sure.
I hope it answers the question to some extent. Maybe the other panelists may like to.
Yeah, I concur with all. Yeah, totally, yes.
Sure. There was one question that I think Satish has, you've responded in the chat already. Yeah, please. Sure. Any other questions from the participants?
Yeah, there's one question on where should business start with digital transformation? I guess they should have started by now already, if not later. It just, again, guys, studies shows that between large, mid-size MSMEs and all of them, I think about 70 to 75% of them have already started their digital transformation. Or in other words, what Atul said, not just digitalization, but digital transformation per se, right? Most of the organizations have realized, at least in the last 2 years in the thick of pandemic, that unless you go digital, you're not going to meet your end objective of being profitable as an organization. Right, guys, end of the day, mind you, we can talk about process, we can talk about technology, we can talk about policies, HR, and so on and so forth. But if none of these are going to add up into business profitability, all of these will be shelved, right? So that's why my response in the chat window is also, how do you understand your business growth trajectory? How do you play to it? And how do you enable your employees to move towards that direction? I think that's the key to HR. Ajay spoke about this as well. Sorry, Ajay, picking this up again from you. It is not about hub and spoke process, right? You sit in a corporate office and say, this is the policy you executed in every locale. That's gone. It's the reverse right now, right? In every local, they will say, this is how we operate. This is my local legislative, local law of the land. This is how we function. That gets fed back into central corporate, and they redefine the policy and process. So the quicker we kind of rehash what we are doing, the faster we are in terms of amenable to changes, the much better we are in agility and so on and so forth. I think that would take us much closer to kind of digital transformation. So again, understand the crux that will make your life simpler. Try to digitize that. Don't say, look, I want to get into a data lake and I want to implement it with a lot of data that I have, but without knowing what you're going to achieve out of a data transformation. Right? Else, it's going to become analysis paralysis. You'll be questioned much more than what you are today. Be watchful about it.
Thanks, Satish. We have one last question. There was light shed on HR and how data analytics, big data can bring new views to professionals. Are there any insights to be shared on similar lines for HR and blockchain, please?
I think Satish will have to answer that question.
I'll attempt. I'll let you guys pitch in as well as appropriate. Hey, look at one area, right? Look at this as a business model, right? I'm putting this up for everybody. Have you had a situation where I'm sure most of us run background verifications, right? That's the key. At least in the last 2 years, it's been very critical with the impersonation, fake profiles coming in, and so on. Do we have blockchain, ledger-based, encrypted background verification platforms, right? Why should, if let's say Ajay hires Satish, and I work for Ajay for a while, Ajay does a criminal check, background check, database check, address verification, last 2 employers, whatnot, right? And I go join Atul after 2 years. Atul does the same thing again, repetitive in nature. If blockchain is going to be put to best use, can we create a model where all of these are now put on a, the cliche word of right now, DigiLocker for the UAN and other stuff that we verify. Can there be a DigiLocker sorts of blockchain mechanism where all my BGVs can be moved from one point to another point, encrypted totally? That could be an encryption model that can be, or fee that can be pushed in from Ajay to Atul, and you get done. You don't have to wait for 14 days to 20 days to get your education, employer check, and all those done as well, right? So there are multiple avenues, if you look at it, to implement blockchain to a large extent. Or in other words, today, how many of you guys are private to NFT, right? All the LXP providers, right? Non-fungible tokens, right? Look at the value of it. That's again in the principles of ledger-based system, right? NFTs are given. Let's say if Ajay curates a program, he pushes back to Bhavna. Bhavna pushes that into Atul. Ajay gets credit for a point, an NFT fungible token, non-fungible token from Bhavna, from Atul, and he monetizes that as well. It's more like a multi-level marketing types, right? That's again done on the principles of distributed ledger, which is blockchain to a large extent. So there are avenues everywhere, but is that our priority at this point in time? Given we've been talking about VUCA, we've gone much beyond VUCA and pandemic, right? It's now become like what phygital. Bhavna coined that term yesterday when we were catching up. In a phygital world, like guys, blockchain is something that we need to look forward to. But I guess to what Ajay and Atul said, have we adopted AI, ML, and other transformation to the fullest maturity as yet? In my view, we have not, right? Unless we potentially use all of these We can keep adding multiple tools, technologies, and whatnot, right? But unless you find a purpose to utilize them, it's all going to go nowhere, right? The last thing that you want is your CFO coming and questioning, you've invested so much money on this, I've not seen any results. Why do you want to get stuck there?
So I hope that answers your question, Pawan, and there's a whole host of things around blockchain and its maturity levels. I'm a compliance professional, so all risk management professionals really want blockchain in every HR process, but yeah, we are far from it. Is there any other question? Otherwise, Faisal, I'll look to you to host the session.
Yeah, so I don't believe there is any more question from you. So thank you, Ms. Bhavna, for taking us through this session and making it such an interactive and exciting one. Thank you, Mr. Atul, Mr. Ajay, and Mr. Satish for sharing your valuable thoughts and insights with us. It has been a privilege having you all for this engrossing session. To all those who wish to learn and grow, you can access the recording of our today's session on our YouTube link shared in the chat window. Before we conclude with today's session, we would also want to thank all the associations, Geisha, NASCOM COE, Talgro, TLE, WICCI, LinkedIn Local, Ahmedabad, and India for supporting HREI's events. To know more about these associations, request you to kindly visit the links provided in the chat window. Do join us for our next Connecting the Dots session on the topic Employee Mental Health and Wellbeing on 22nd of December 2022. That's it from our today's webinar. Hope to see you soon. Stay safe, take care, and bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Ms.
much.
Bhavna. Thank you, Mr. Satish. Thank you, Mr. Atul. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Ajay.
you. Thanks, everyone.